Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, register with StreamYard so we can see your name. Otherwise, you'll be anonymous, which is okay if that's what you want. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors every week because they help support the show. And I am extremely thankful to Ruth, Amanda, Michelle, and Kirsten. If you would like to support the show, please go to sherrypalace.com and use the support tab, or it's right on the front page. I would appreciate your support if you like the show and want to support me in all of these endeavors. This is a safe space. I want to make sure that I clarify that on the onset, because this is also a very tough topic. We're going to have a lot of truth, a lot of vulnerability in the show, and I need to make sure that everybody involved in this show, not only our panel guests, but the participants who are watching and who will continue to watch it, feel safe and heard. This is a very tough topic, like I said, but it needs to be talked about. And I really appreciate my panel for having the bravery to be that person. So let's not hesitate anymore. I've got Dr. Jennifer Bird. She's an independent scholar who was born and reared in the South and currently resides in the Pacific Northwest. She has a bachelor's in mathematics and an education minor from Virginia Tech, an MDiv from Princeton Theological Seminary, and a PhD in New Testament and early Christianity from Vanderbilt University. She spent 7 years leading and evangelizing in a parachurch ministry and 20 plus years teaching in higher ed, doing intersectional work around gender, sex, sexuality, biblical studies, and cultural studies. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. I'm well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing this
I am well. I am really excited to have this conversation, and thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Next, we have who it might actually become my co-host at this point. Ana Garcia Lucas. She was born and raised in Mexico. She's a mother, wife, and veteran. Anna earned her MDiv in the Episcopal Divinity School at Bexley Seabury Seminary. A Reformed Roman Catholic, she is now Episcopalian, spiritual mystic, probably a heretic, and a lover of coffee, music, green chili, and good jokes. Welcome, Anna. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I am so honored to have you to be back again. Thank you so much.
And for everybody watching, Anna will be on next week too when we talk about the goddess. So let's start with the basics, right? Rape is not about sex. Rape is about power. You find rape in all systems across the board from the dawn of history in power. When you add the biblical to it, there's a property issue. So there was a power struggle there too. We see it in the church. We see it in government. We see it in every industry across the board. It is a power dynamic, and sex is a way to really, truly victimize by not only assaulting the body, but the mind and the soul. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people misconstrue it as a sexual urge or something like that. It is truly a sexual deviant behavior. It is an assault and has nothing to do with sex. In fact, I would prefer that no one ever say consensual sex, because consensual sex is just sex. And then there's rape. Jennifer, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I was contemplating what you were saying about deviant sex, and wanting to, my response was, well, I think that it's a form of abuse and dominance using a sexual organ.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I want to, as with you, like, I love your comment about you want to do away with consensual sex because sex is consensual.
Yeah.
And so even saying sexual deviant or deviance. No, this is a form of abuse. This is a form of dominance using a sexual organ. Like, I don't even want so
I'm getting this mental picture of a
okay.
Yeah.
But it's abuse. It isn't
Yeah.
sex, right? I just want to, it's like I want to front load that whole, this is abuse. This is dominance. This is a disrespect for humanity, and a form of control. Like those are what go through my mind. I'm sure Anna has
Pure domination.
Yeah. Lateral, top down. Yeah.
Anna, comments?
Yes. Oh, I have a lot. So in the military, anytime we were going into a conflict zone or a hostile zone, we would get a back brief on the cultures. And as in any conflict, in any war, as you said, Sherry, from the dawn of time and throughout the Bible, sex was used to rip out the very soul of whoever it was that was being assaulted, to denigrate them, to break them down, to make them less than. And it was more often associated with making you a woman, making you female, because at that time, women were less than. So the easiest way to break somebody, to hurt somebody, to destroy somebody was to rape them. If you think of movies like, what was that, Mel Gibson and Freedom, and what was the one thing they did? They raped the women to breed them out, or to break them, or to spill their seed, to as you said, Jennifer, to change the property of the women and the children and make them less than. So rape was all about what is the best way to intimately get inside, literally, and rip you apart, metaphorically, emotionally, spiritually, physically. That is what rape is to me.
Yeah, and I remember hearing a very non-emotional paper presented about this scene etched in stone, and it's the end of a battle, and all the victors are raping the losers, right?
Wow.
That's the final, nail in the coffin. It just makes me sick, right? Even talking, but it's like, yes.
When I can't remember whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan, but I had just gotten to a combat comm squadron, and there was this 19-year-old girl. She was brand new married, because that's what they did. They married each other before they went off to war. She was about to deploy, and this was right after the two women were taken POWs, the blonde one and the other, the African-American soldier. Her question to me, because it came up for everybody, what if they raped me? What do I do? And I had no answer. What do I tell my husband? How do I come home? How do I survive that? And it wasn't, what if I'm killed? It's, what if I'm raped? And every school that I talked to about women, what happens? What do we tell them? Had no training, because women didn't go to war. Yet women were in war, and women got raped. But there was no training to help anybody, women or men, because men got raped too, right? They just didn't talk about it. There was nothing to help them, just like there isn't with a lot of survivors, to come back. And that's, what a word, right? How do I come back? And it's not, how do I come back from the dead? How do I come back to my husband, to my family, ... fill in the blank.
I actually had a girlfriend say to me once that death was better than rape.
Yes, I agree.
And that shocked me. because coming from someone who was abused, that, that never even crossed my mind to even equate that. But she stood firm and said, no, I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't live with a violation. I wouldn't want to live. I think that death is better. And when people look at, that's the power over it though, right? That's knowing that power play is why it happens.
Exactly. And why, on a certain level, we continue to perpetuate those, the unnecessary, right? There's an element of what your friend said, Sherry, that is unfortunate, right? That is unnecessary, but she has learned that, right? She took that in because she was taught to think of it this way. And I think that's a part of what we're trying to talk about here this evening, right? Is the way we unconsciously perpetuate those ideas and beliefs, right?
And the violence behind it.
Right. But and that really it's saying more about the person who's doing it to you. It's not actually about you.
Is this a time for your slides?
I don't know. Is it?
I think so. Jennifer graced us with some slides, and I want to apologize in advance for it not being gender neutral. But we are apply that to it. Okay, rape culture is a complex set of beliefs that encourage male sexual aggression and supports violence against women. It's a society where violence is seen as sexy and sexuality as violent. In a rape culture, women perceive a continuum of threatened violence that ranges from sexual remarks to sexual touching to rape itself, and condones physical, emotional terrorism against women as the norm. In a rape culture, both men and women assume that sexual violence is a fact of life, inevitable. However, much of what we accept as inevitable is in fact expression of values and attitudes that can change. And this is from Emily Buchwald, is that right? And then we have the one more slide.
Oh.
Elements of negatively informed.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. That was the final slide in the slideshow that slides were pulled from. Sorry.
Okay. Well, then let's go back to us.
Yeah.
So I think that it's perpetuated through the power, and I know a lot of people say, well, women do it too, and that's kind of dismissed, with men because of erections, and saying that if they, had an erection, then they wanted it. Men said the same thing about women, about how they couldn't get pregnant in a rape, or, if they should lay back and enjoy it. Those are the type of things in our society that perpetuate that on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't say no. Well, you didn't say no when I was halfway there. Well, you never told me to stop. Well, you never fought. You never pushed me away. You never. And it always is turned back to the person being abused, right? I hate to use the word victim. I hate the word victim because that seems to take away the person itself.
Say survivor or
Yes,
I like that. Yeah.
But the society as a whole puts it on the person that the act is being done to. Puts that responsibility there. You say no, or you don't dress that way, or you don't get drunk, or you don't be around all those whatever. You prevent this. And alleviates everything from the person that's actually the rapist.
Years ago, there was a case from rape where the rapist almost got off. I don't remember if he did or not, but his defense was that his victim, I'm going to use that in this case, asked him to put a condom on. It was during the AIDS crisis. And his defense was, if she asked me to put a condom on, it wasn't truly rape. And on the stand, she said, I had to succumb to the rape, but that didn't mean I had to die. And even for a rapist to use as a defense, the woman said, protect me at least from there. shows that we are conditioned and that we, accept those types of things.
Yeah. I mean, I reflecting back to or referring back to some of those slides, one of the things that I keep thinking about, right, that you were referring to, Anna, and that particular case, what kinds of things are we accepting, or are we, looking past? I'm working on the audio for my book, so I've been reading some of the chapters that relate to this kind of conversation, and so it's kind of in the back of my mind, the ways that we ignore violence, or the ways we normalize violence, and the ways we, because part of the definition that we were using there, the aggression and violence against other people instead of the gender language, right? That there's an element of normalizing that as a normal way to interact with others, right? Violence and aggression versus, I don't know, sitting down to talk things out.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid. Right. So the issue of rape culture doesn't start with the way we talk about sex. It starts with all these other elements, right? In terms of the denigration of other humans who are different from us, and all of these other pieces, I think, which then build up to what Anna was saying, right? That we're putting the blame on the wrong, in the wrong place, right? We're addressing the symptoms or the very end of this issue, right? And it started way back over here with all these other pieces of our culture or what's being normalized. I don't know.
Well, and I've mentioned my husband before that, one of the reasons why I never got married again was, one, I never knew I wasn't divorced, but marriage enabled him to rape me. It gave him that authority. It because God said so. So once we became husband and wife, it was, you owe me. Yeah. I deserve this. You have to. You are my wife. It's an obligation. I wasn't only rejecting him, I was rejecting God. And I will say it again. If he were alive and I were talking to him today, he would totally dismiss me that I was calling it rape. He in no way would ever view himself as a rapist. But if I managed to say no, because of the period after childbirth and you're not able to, that wasn't satisfactory to him and it didn't matter. He would do it when I went to sleep. So it was, let's just, avoid the fight, avoid the negativity. And, when she's sleeping, she'll wake up and it doesn't really matter anyway. And again, all ordained by the Bible as a point of property. And where all of my rights just went out the door because that was okay.
That was your job. That was your job as a wife. And same thing happened to me, my first marriage. I did not know it was rape until in the military, as I mentioned, we were getting bystander training, and we had to finally, because nobody understood what the definition of rape was. I want to say that again. They didn't understand what the definition of rape was. They equated it, so many people equate it with this stranger coming at you and beating you up or stabbing you, holding a gun to your head, tying you up and making it horrendous. When it is, as you said, Jennifer, non-consensual. Bottom line, non-consensual.
It's an attack.
So by the time I understood that what was happening to me, like you said, what was happening to you as a wife was rape, it was oh my God, do you know how many times I've been raped? Not just by him, but how many times I've been raped? Oh my God, what happened? Why didn't anybody tell me? And then it gets crazy.
It does. And I'm sorry, I haven't had that experience the way the two of you have, though. I've had a very interesting, intimate experience with a man that bordered on it. And it just made me, I just went into my head and thought about that. But someone commented here, marital rape was legal in Iowa until 1989. I wanted to comment that is not just Iowa. And in fact, I was when I was in graduate school at Vanderbilt, that was early aughts, 2003 to 7. I had someone bring to my attention that people people brought the bill to the Tennessee state legislature to put in law that it was rape, to make marital rape illegal, and it was shot down 15 years in a row because the men said, "There's no such thing as rape. I can do what I want to my wife."
Yeah.
Like 15 years in a row.
So can just for this, because I do want to get it out with your permission, define rape. Can I do that?
Yes.
So rape, and this is according to Britannica, rape is the unlawful sexual activity most often involving sexual intercourse against the will of the victim through force or the threat of force, or with an individual who is incapable of giving legal consent because of minor status, mental illness, mental deficiency, intoxication, unconsciousness, or deception. In many jurisdictions, the crime of rape has been subsumed under that of sexual assault. Rape was long considered to be caused by unbridled sexual desire, but is now understood as a pathological assertion of power over a victim. I wanted to make sure we got that out.
Thank
so
you.
Everybody understood what it is we're talking about.
Yes. Right.
Well, and Jennifer posted the Brock Turner story that she had written in the Fireside Creators. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely go read that article. But Brock Turner is a really good example of the dismissive nature of the rape of females, especially. I mean, luckily there were two people who, jumped in and saved this poor girl, but he took full liberties and then only got 90 days. Someone who beat a dog would have received more of a sentence. Someone who registered their child in the wrong school district in Texas received 5 years, but Brock Turner, for raping a girl behind a trash can, received 3 months. Yeah. So when anyone is to say, "Oh, well, rape culture doesn't exist," these are clear examples of it existing, and it's systemic because of the laws that we can't get passed for marital rape. Because of, I just saw, what was it? Massachusetts just passed a law today to ban childhood marriage, and there's still 14 states that allow it. So you can't marry a child and it not be rape. Children cannot consent. Parents cannot consent for that child. So even those types of things are examples of rape.
Yes. So rape culture. If somebody were to ask me what exactly is rape culture, after I go off on the deep end full of rage at the whole idea of what rape culture is, I would like to ask for examples, all kinds of examples from you two, from the listeners. What to you is rape culture?
I just listed my example with Brock Turner, and I don't mean to steal that from you, Jennifer, but I mean, that is a really good example. Another one would be priests in the Catholic Church or pastors and youth pastors in the Christian churches. That is systemic across the board that's happening. And again, driven by the justification of the Bible. Jennifer?
Yeah, I think when I think of rape culture, I think of the ideas and beliefs that people condone, or the practices that are condoned, which yes, the Brock Turner situation is an example of, but I think of aggression being okay, or right. I mean, I go back to those kinds of pieces of not being conscious of the other humans we are interacting with. Mm-hmm. And I think, when you look at Brock Turner, and I just go back to, well, we can't, think about his future. And it just, I want to spit rails. I'm like, that is precisely what we wanted for her.
Exactly.
That is it. Like, people get only when it starts to apply to them do they start to see the implications of the way we interact with each other matters, right? So for me, rape culture comes out of a lack of that, a lack of compassion, a lack of understanding, a lack of humanity.
Totally.
Right? Sorry, I'm
Yes.
I
No, you go, girl.
I'm really angry about this.
No. Sex workers.
Get raped all the time.
They get raped all the time. And what is the first thing people will say? Well, it's their job. Well, how many kinky things do they get paid to do? They cannot, like you said, Jennifer, they cannot differentiate the person from the job. They cannot differentiate the aggression behind what is being done to them from what they do as a living. In the military, we had a young lady who went to a party with a bunch of guys and she got drunk. She got gang raped. But in the minds of so many, when this was reported finally, well, she was drunk. She knew better. She shouldn't have been there. They didn't know she was passed out, which don't even get me started on that either. Right. She should have been more responsible. Everything was, well, she should have.
Right. And the thing is, people are not able to put themselves in the recipient space of that, right? They can say all these things about her because they've never actually thought about what that is like. They've never put themselves in her position, whether it is about the drinking and it doesn't matter. What they were saying, they can't think about what they're dishing out, right? Oh my gosh, when I first started teaching undergraduates, and I wanted very much to reframe the story of Sodom, because teaching health, the issue of people misusing that to say that God hates fags, please forgive me, I'm just quoting, right? God hates homosexuality. That isn't what the story's about. No. And I would very slowly walk through and show that this is about cruelty. They want to gang rape these two people. And I would walk through it slowly, carefully. And I had this image of a particular football player who said, it's sex. Like, they want to have gay sex. And thinking about him as being sexually active and not having a clue about the difference between rape and sex. It just shakes me to my core, makes me think about the kind of sex he's actually forcing on women. Because I know that he's hetero, but anyway, that's a part of rape culture, right? To not even understand the distinction here, that, as you two have both been saying in lots of different ways and examples, how we are not able to put ourselves in those scenarios that we're talking about.
Well, and the culture is perpetuated from absolution of the offendant, right? Just like Brock Turner, you don't want to ruin his future. Right. The priests, let's pay them off. Let's silence all of the victims for that. So, like Kirsten is saying right now, women say, deny it because to protect themselves, but in turn, we're actually protecting the power. We're justifying it. We're giving them absolution to do whatever the hell they want to do because they have power and we should just submit. It goes back to the women in the Bible, the LGBT community. Anybody who can be dominated, it can be a victim of rape. And it doesn't matter if it's a man or woman, child or adult. If someone wants to dominate you, they can use rape as a tool.
Right.
And it is often seen as you are now a sinner because somehow you must have asked for it. Somehow you must have invited it. Somehow, so often sex is equated with sin that when you have a rape, well, now it's the sin. And it's never the sin of the person that raped.
Exactly.
That rapes the other one, right? Because you forgive them, the person who was raped, still has to carry that forever. Mm-hmm. And, God help you if you become pregnant, because then that brings a whole other set of things. So yes, like Kristen said, women can perpetrate it. perpetuated. I don't know what the correct word is, both. Because as long as I'm a good person, I will not get raped. Hopefully, that may be what they're thinking, right? As long as I'm a God-fearing woman, as long as I am not a sinner, I won't get raped. And if it does happen to you, to, the person who thinks that way, then all this shame is piled on. And now you're faced with, do I report it or not? Because what will people think of me? Not how can I get help, but what will people think of me?
Well, and the culture, again, with, dealing with the survivors, if it is dismissed, if it is, saying, okay, well, she shouldn't have been drunk. Like BLM is saying, to cops who are killers, hands up. It's the same type of power play. It involves people's lives. And to say, well, she shouldn't have gotten drunk. He shouldn't have resisted. She shouldn't have been wearing that. He shouldn't have been in the store. All of those things are what create a culture, and why we are talking about rape culture as opposed to telling our rape stories and these types of things. Because when it is systemic, when we have men and women doing these types of justifications, it does perpetuate it. And we see it across the line. And I know I'm probably going to get shit for this, but it tends to be white men across the board. And it's a statistic that's out there, not my own words. But because they have had the power in so many places, that is why they also have the tools to do so.
And get away with it.
Yes.
And get away with it. Brent, whatever his name is the perfect example, the perfect global live stream example of a white frat boy who got away with rape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4,500 tips into the FBI line that went unchecked. That shows that it's acceptable. I mean, your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear what you're saying. When our system disregards that and looks at his anger as justified and righteous anger for being accused of such a thing.
His tears.
Oh, God. Elephant tears of his own, righteousness, which just... that is the mentality that we're talking about here. If it weren't for that mentality, we wouldn't be having these discussions. It's an entitlement.
Exactly. I was going to say it's entitlement. And it's also, making the point about how women also, this framework that we are kind of talking about is male on female rape. But as you've both noted, this isn't just about that, right? Rape is can happen between two men, can happen between two women, can happen by a woman to a man, and then also including the non-binary folks in this. But coming back to the issue of everyone in a patriarchal society has been trained to protect men, right? So the men in power we've been well trained to try to protect them, even if it's at our detriment. It's a really important piece of what you all are saying, what others are commenting on here. When I watch a female try to de-escalate a male's anger, I think of that as part of this conversation.
Yeah.
She needs to protect herself by keeping him calm. And I want to say, do you realize how unhealthy that is? That's your partner that you are de-escalating instead of being honest with? That is a part of rape culture to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreaching on that. But.
So think about it. What were you taught growing up to protect yourself against rape? Because it was never
keys,
put the keys between your fingers,
between the fingers.
Throw some money, carry money so you can call. Don't go out at night. Be with the group. Women were taught from the very beginning, the way you walk, don't smile, don't look at somebody in the eyes, don't touch them, don't
encourage them.
Don't encourage them. Well, if you go out dressed like that, you're sending a message. It was never, hey, don't rape. It was always, don't be raped.
Well, and that thinking is behind the burqa. So
Yes.
when, without, it's all, keep men safe, keep it, let's avoid any chance that you could get raped because of what you have done. And let's throw you in a burqa. Let's put you in a sack so no one can see you. And there is still rape.
Yeah.
Proving that it's not the women, that it's not, any of those things. It is the power play.
And you just tapped into, for me, the realm of the purity culture. And And I remember as a senior in college getting baggier clothes so I wouldn't cause my boyfriend to stumble. Yep. Right. So still this issue of the female in this case taking responsibility to not cause something. But that is playing into this as well, our misunderstandings, right, about who has the power or whatever, what role we have as our bodies play, in setting off some sort of.
Well, women are the root of all evil. The Bible will tell you so, right?
I know.
For the Bible tells me so.
Right.
But patriarchy really is behind it. I mean, if we really want to go to the top or to the foundation,
to the right,
it is the patriarchy. Because without that ownership mentality, without that power play, without that you are mine.
That's it. You are my property.
Yeah.
Well, what is the overarching idea of rape in jail, right? You are my bitch. Mm-hmm. So that's like you said, that's not about sex. That's not about love. That's not about intimacy. That is all about property, having, taking, keeping, control, power, whatever. It's like the biblical, I have 40 wives, except they're all in prison now and they're all my bitches. Mm-hmm. That is what it is.
Well, and even look at the story of Onan, right? I mean, a lot of people think it's an LGBTQ community, story or masturbation or something like that. But it's actually, he was sent to be with his sister-in-law.
Right.
And she was forced to accept him. So, I mean, we have these ancient stories of, and the man was like, okay, well, I'm just going to shoot it over here, not to be crude, but I mean, it's in the Bible. But these types of things, again, say, well, she's such a property that she can be handed down.
Yes.
They did the same thing to slavery. Slavery and people of the global community, I'm trying to say that right, because I really like that term. When they were enslaved, part of the issue was the women and the rape. And that's why we have the Jefferson line and all of these things, because rape was part of it. And to have these people changing history to make it seem that it was Jefferson, right?
Affair.
Yeah, they loved each other and they went everywhere with each other. And to conflate rape with love is even more disgusting.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the power play of not really being able to say no. You can say no or you can die.
Right.
And if you pick either one, if you're raped or you're killed, it's both the same in a way, right? You still lose your life to a point. You still lose you to a point. So it comes down to that. There were stories that I learned when I was in college about some of the enslaved people, that if they gave birth to baby girls, they would kill the baby girls so that they would save them from what would eventually happen to them. And they saw that as again, do I let her get raped,
right,
which is inevitable, or do I show mercy at this point? And what a thing to come down to, right? Like you said in the Bible, going back to Sodom and Gomorrah, what did he offer? Do not rape these angels. I will give you my daughters to rape.
Yeah.
Right? Right away, we are unconsciously taught that whoever is raped, it is worth so little that you are easily given up by your own father.
And then fucked in the next story.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go ahead and say that too.
Yeah.
Excuse my French, but it's just
him, right? They end up raping their father.
Yes.
And we look like, I mean,
wow. Yeah.
And of course, I always want to say, and let's talk about who's writing the story, by the way. But
that was my point. That's why I went, well, okay.
Yeah. And why do we read right past when Abraham, rapes Hagar?
No.
Why do we just read right past that? Why do we read right past any time?
Yeah.
Why do we have to make it that Bathsheba was interested in David and maybe she had thoughts for him?
That was not a love story.
Yeah,
That was one of the worst things. Once I read it with an adult frame of mind, okay, he saw her. She was forced to come to him. He raped her. He impregnated her. And then he killed her husband.
Yeah.
How is that honorable? How is that worthy of a king? How is that godly or goodly?
Yes.
How?
Stories told in Sunday school, by the way. Let's just put that down.
The whole story's not good. It's not even, she's talked about in like 5 verses at the beginning. She's done. Like the rest is about David and how he's getting Uriah killed and and the child is killed to punish him.
Yes.
What about Bathsheba? Like it was her child.
She lost her baby because he couldn't keep it in his robes.
He was probably gay with Jonathan, by the way. So let's just throw that into the mix too. So, not conflating the LGBT community, but again, just missing the women and saying, well, here's a byproduct here. I need to do this. Here's a conqueror. Here are those things. But my true love is elsewhere. Proving he had no value for her whatsoever.
I mean,
so why are we at that? This is making me hot. I'm getting so fired up. Oh my God. Why is it acceptable, like you said, Jennifer, to debase, dehumanize, and destroy another person? Is it because everybody has sex and that's how we see it? Otherwise, sex becomes dirty? Or is it something else? What is it that we have this culture that believes that rape is no big deal? Unless it happens to you or yours. Otherwise, it's no big deal.
Jennifer,
somebody answer that for me.
I mean, I know this is going to sound like ridiculously removed, but I don't mean it to be. The lack of understanding. I mean, understanding is at the center of my teaching philosophy because I believe that understanding will lead to world peace. Exactly. Like I literally believe that. And the question you just posed and my response, in my head, I was like, because we don't teach children to empathize. Oh. I think it is that simple on some level because when you empathize and you see these other people as real humans, and you think about the impact your interactions are having on them. And if you
and we do that across the board, right? Not only with women or the opposite gender, we do that with different races. We do that with the animals. We do that with everything on this planet.
Yes.
It's an ownership. God gave me the right to do this, and I'm going to do this, because we own everything. So I would just like to throw in that we're raping this planet blind every freaking day. So, and again, that's denied. That's hyperbolic, all of those things because it's power.
Genesis 1 says we have dominion over the planet. So be quiet about that.
Yeah.
And we don't see that dominion as that is not entitlement. Going back to what you said, right? That is not entitlement. That is responsibility and accountability. So somebody rewrite, contact all those people who wrote the Bible and put it back and say, please say it is responsibility and accountability, not dominion. It is not dominion.
We have dominion over our children.
Mm-hmm.
We don't ever think, well, let's go slaughter them tomorrow.
Right? That's a good point.
I mean, so this dominion is very selective. When it's when it's to slaughter a supreme elephant or a sentient being, then it's our power. If it's dominion over women, then it's God given. But I always bring it back to the family structure.
Yes.
And we have, by birth, we have dominion over our children. So this whole patriarchy wouldn't even exist if the women didn't,
right?
give birth.
Yes. Yes. And what do we actually have in our children? We have a dominion in the sense that we are accountable and responsible to raise them to be accountable and responsible, and so on and so forth. Nobody ever taught me that before I became a mom. Yeah. Nobody taught me that they're not really mine. They're my responsibility. Yeah. I'm accountable for them. They taught me, oh, those are your children.
Mm-hmm. More property.
Like your body is yours. Mm-hmm. Not everybody else is accountable and responsible for your safety. You're that. Somehow that got, like you were saying, Jennifer, we lost that in the earth. We lost that in each other. The accountability and the responsibility to take care of, not take, somehow we lost the care, but to take care of each other, not own, not control. Oh, look, she just said yes. The minute she echoes what you're saying, Christine there. So,
yeah,
if you could have Brock Turner and Brett Kavanaugh for a weekend, how do you change their mind? Because some people will say, well, you know what? You get what you dish out, but that doesn't do it, does it? That because now you're becoming what they are.
Right.
So how do you cultivate that empathy in adults who clearly?
I think empathy is a choice.
Yes.
I struggle with this across social media on a constant basis, that I need to, because I too feel that knowledge is key. Knowledge brings understanding, brings empathy. But if you fail to understand, then there will be no empathy. And when I think that you touched on the respect and the seeing of other people. When we do see them as a person, then we can't commit those crimes, right? It's that empathy that we build. So if the person is dehumanized, which we do all the time, right? By calling people names, they're trash, always equating it to something that's not human. But when we lose that humanity, then we can do whatever we want.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's funny because the first thought that went through my head and in response to your question was, well, there's a reason why we just kind of don't worry about the older generations. We're like, they're lost causes. Like, let's focus on the children because they're the ones we can teach before things are too set in stone. I mean, it sounds awful, right? But I think there's an element of that when I think of Kavanaugh or Turner. I mean, how would you sit down and have a conversation with them?
I don't know. I don't know because it's scary. You, in a lot of things, and I say this again from the military perspective because that's what I was faced with. The older group that didn't want the women there or saw the women as you're the military form of comfort women. Okay, you are mine. You are mine to have. You kind of, oh, well, he is from that generation. And now you're already telling the next generation, if you get to this age, I'm going to throw up my hands and kind of just accept it. It was so confusing. It is so confusing to try to prove I am somebody worth respecting. It's a frustrating thing because when you say it or when you feel it, you don't feel very respected at all. If you have to say it, you don't feel respected.
Right. Go ahead.
No. When we look at dominion, if we look at it as a power play as opposed to responsibility, then we do dehumanize. So if we looked at dominion as a responsibility to our brother, then how could we create such harm? How could we
Yes.
feel that entitlement? When you look at dominion as a power play, and it's taught in the Navy. I mean, look at all the soldiers. They're not allowed to get tattoos unless it's approved. Or I remember my brother-in-law kept doing the hickeys that he would get on leave. You can't even do that. So that is perpetuated. So if they're controlled, then they're going to control, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just causes to go down. But if we look at it as a responsibility to our neighbor, as Jesus said, we are responsible for our neighbor, then those attacks are seen as inhumane. Right now, just typical boys will be boys.
Yeah, right. I mean, I keep coming back to your question, Anna. I want to just sit down and ask Brock, what happened? Why did you do that? What was going through your mind? Like, why did it seem okay to you to do that to someone? And we don't have to say to her, right?
Right, to anyone.
To anyone.
But like, why? Tell me how that played out for you. What's lacking in you? But really, I'm going to ask if I get something else.
What is the backstory? What road were you on that brought you to here?
Why are you so broken that you thought that you could break someone else so thoroughly?
I mean,
yes.
Maybe.
Although,
and how do you
in all honesty, I love that we're talking about this, Grace, but I wouldn't want to be in the same room as them. I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't feel safe. And if I did feel safe, I would feel violent.
Yes.
Just laying it out there. I'm human.
Because
I'm
you're
not
scared.
proud of that.
Because you're scared. That is a human response. Fear is a human response. When you know that somebody has become violent, and whether or not they hit anybody when they rape them, it is a violent act.
Very violent.
When you know that somebody did that, it creates fear. And maybe that's part of what Brock Turner, Brett Kavanaugh had. I want to feel like I can invoke fear in somebody. So there, like you were saying, there's a power play. So there is something very, very weak in people that prey on others. There is a weakness there. Yep. So, and you can't really ask that, right? Because right away that'll be, oh no, I'm not. Yeah. They'll throw the dick on the table and say, measure this, because this is how strong I am.
Yes.
You metaphorically speaking.
That weapon.
Yes, the weapon. It is a weakness. And you look at incels, you look at other serial rapists. It is a weakness somewhere that they feel they need to change by making someone else weak.
Well, and statistically, people who were abused become abusers.
Right.
So when we talk about what happened to Kavanaugh or what happened to Brock Turner, chances are they were abused in some way, shape, or form to be able to learn that behavior. I don't think being a jock in the Hamptons causes it. Like so many said, oh, he was just a schoolboy, doing those types of things. That's not going to cause you to be okay with causing someone so much harm, for taking their humanity, from taking their womanhood. I mean, for some people, it's even more of a score if she's a virgin. That is disgusting. And when you look at any human, any part of humanity, or again, I'll even stretch it to the entire planet, as something that you can own and rule and control and penetrate whenever you'd like, or use it for your own penetration. Let's not make this, just about women. There's something broken. There's something seriously broken that has had to have caused that situation. I don't think it's simple arrogance. Some people think.
No, I don't think it is.
I hope not, at least.
I'm trying to think. That's sad. I'm trying to think of all the perpetrators I have personally known. And there was arrogance, and that wasn't the underlying aspect of who they were. Because in many cases, and I'm going to get graphic, well, not really graphic, but trigger warning, in many cases during the act of the rape, there was commentary. Tell me how it feels.
Right.
Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Do you like this?
Wow.
There was always a communicated need of something. Pick a point. And when I was in the military, and we had some men that were raped by groups that came through, and they would never report. I had one talk to me, and I told him, I said, we need to report this. And he said, I can't. I cannot. I had my gun. I never fired it.
Mm.
And it was later, way later, hearing that from a metaphorical point of view, the impotence he felt at not being able to, quote unquote, be a man against another man, even though he was armed, broke him. It permanently broke him. We had to send him out of the area. And that came with men, primarily men, who were broken from 1.5 to 2+ years out in combat zones to come in and break other men. Why? Because they felt broken? Because they couldn't break the people they were after? Who knows? But like you said, Sherry, something in there is broken, and the need to try to fix it, to fill that break with somebody else's break, something happened that was seen as an acceptable method of being taken care of.
Well, just the fact that there's commentary, what a gigantic detachment from reality, right?
Yes.
If you're talking to the person you're raping, you have no clue that what you're actually doing. There is no, I mean, it's just complete detachment from the situation. I mean, there's just no reality there. I can't even imagine.
I'm glad you can imagine.
I mean, well, I guess I can because, that I was involved with my husband, and it was those types of things. But for commentary that just blows my mind. It's like, who do you think you are?
And I don't know, I don't want to get off on the wrong tangent here, but I am struck by what the two of you are saying and the underlying lack, right? What is behind arrogance but a weakness and a lack of self-assurance? And so the need to project the opposite, right? And perpetually, usually, right?
Yes.
And all these other pieces, that there is a lack in the human who is making this happen, right? So anyway,
You have a metaphorical Cain and Abel, don't you? Cain was so upset at not having the love that he thought he was entitled to, that he went forth and killed the person to try to gain that love or to teach somebody else a lesson. There, like you said, there was a lack. There was a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling of not being enough, a feeling of why not me, that he had to go out and say, mine. Now you have to see me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my dogs are letting me know that we're at the top of the hour.
Timely. That's impressive. Yeah.
I can't even say what I was going to say because of this topic. But let's give final words. Jennifer, final words of wisdom. Where can they find you? All of that good stuff.
Okay. Thank you. The easiest way to find me is Facebook, just Jennifer Bird on Facebook. I am putting things into the world that invite critical thinking meets reading the Bible, and with these kinds of conversations and topics specifically in mind. So I have a couple books out. I'm working on the audio of my book, Permission Granted. anyway, so yeah, I'd love for you to check out some of.
Do we have a release date yet?
Hopefully by in mid to late August.
Okay, that's soon.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a party.
I'm close. Yes.
Anna?
I have no words. Well, I do have words. For all of you rapists out there, what is broken in you? Ask yourself the why instead of raping. Ask yourself the why.
Yeah. Healing needs to occur. And I, like we said earlier, understanding and knowledge will do that. And that's my reason for these shows is, to talk about the beliefs, to talk about the things that we get so wrong that perpetuates a culture of abuse, division, supremacy, faux supremacy, and all of that. So thank you, ladies, so much for having the courage and the veracity and tenacity and everything that it took for you guys to come here. Thank you so very much. David, I will post the link if it doesn't pop up in the VIP. So don't worry about that. I know we're going to want some more conversation to this. Thank you, ladies, so very much. I'm going to send you backstage and then I'll see you in the VIP shortly.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was a tough show. I expected as much. But that's never an easy subject. And I really hope that all of you got something out of it and that our pain and frustration and all of this is not in vain. There are no mistakes if we learned from it. And I hope all of you learned something tonight. I know I did, even if it's kind of a disgusting type of knowledge. Anyway, on to bigger things. Next week, we are going to be talking about the goddess. I've got one spot open if anyone wants to join in, but we will be talking about the goddess and how she was silent by the patriarchy that perpetuates all of this. I want to thank everybody for listening and for watching. And if you would like to support me and this show, please go to sherrypalace.com. and go to support. You will get a link immediately to end up in the VIP where we can continue this conversation. Thank you so very much. And I'll see you next week. Lots of love.